Hi, I'm Raphael and I love musicals. Welcome to Musical Theater 101, a show where my goal is to educate and broaden your knowledge of musical theater. In each episode, I'll provide a quick plot summary of a musical, a short analysis of its themes, main characters, songs and lyrics, background information on the creative team, and more. And if I've learned anything from Gypsy, it's that you gotta get a gimmick. So, mine is that at the end of each video, I'll tell you why you should care about the musical at hand. Today, we're talking about cats. Quick disclaimer before you inevitably get upset with me and start yelling at me in the comments. We are not talking about the 2019 movie adaptation. That would make this video excruciatingly long, and no one has that kind of time nowadays. For some strange reason, this 1981 Andrew Lloyd Webber musical has made an interesting comeback into our collective consciousness. Don't ask me why, but I've kind of always had this morbid curiosity about this musical, so I wrote a feature-length film about it, and this is what you're watching. Andrew Lloyd Webber has famously said that Cats is a musical about, well, cats. And he was not lying. This musical doesn't follow one of the more traditional dramatic structures, as originally predicted by Aristotle in his Poetics, and later conveniently summarized in Freytag's Pyramid. My neighbor's dog is barking. I think it's no. One notion of plot is that it comprises a series of events that causally lead to the next, thus creating a dramatic structure that should lead somewhere and eventually satisfactorily conclude. So, I'm not going to be the one to make a grand, sweeping statement and say that Cats doesn't have a plot. Again. But I will say that its structure is unconventional, and in some dark, twisted way, it works for what the creative team proposed to do from the get-go. I won't get too much into the history of how Cats was created, as much as I want to try to explain to you its story. And I'm not calling it a plot for reasons. I also think it's important to point out now that this musical is fully sang through, which gives it a different flow than what you'd find in a play where you have songs sprinkled among scenes with spoken dialogue. Well, should we get into it? Strap in. This is going to be a journey. Before I start, I also wanted to mention that Cats is based on T.S. Eliot's Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, a collection of poems for children originally published in 1939. Most lyrics in this musical were taken directly from Eliot's work and woven into song and dance numbers, though some songs were written specifically for the purpose of this show. A lot of revisions have been made to the script. Lines added, lines moved, whole songs moved and removed. But I'll try my best to explain to you what happens based on the 1998 direct-to-video stage recording of the show and the original libretto, which have a few differences between them. The story of this musical is a fairly simple one. A group of cats, the Jellicle Cats, are getting together to have the Jellicle Ball, where the oldest, wisest cat will choose which one of them will ascend to the Heaviside Layer, which is basically their version of heaven, to be reborn. Throughout the play, we meet a myriad of cats, and this is not a euphemism. See? Is it still going? Just a few more, and there we go. They introduce themselves or each other as they try to make the case as to why they should be the chosen one. A small kerfuffle ensues as an evil cat kidnaps the Jellicle patriarch, who's brought back through a feat of magic by one of the other cats. A shunned and despised older cat sings a beautiful power ballad. In the end, ye old wise cat makes their choice and the chosen cat ascends to the Heaviside layer. The end. That's it. Cats begins with a series of actors crawling on stage wearing tight bodysuits, leg warmers, crazy 80s wigs styled to look animalistic with like cat ears hairsprayed on, as well as like some crazy cat makeup that gives each cat a distinguishable personality. The actor's physicality is extremely important for this musical, so that's something to keep in mind if you'll be taking part in a production of it. The way the actors move about the stage has to be telling of who each cat is individually, without ever posing the threat of having the audience forget that they are watching animals and not actors. That is what we call willing suspension of disbelief. For an audience, it is the act of giving up on critical thinking or logic in order to be able to fully enjoy the absurdities in the work that they're watching. In order for the spectator to believe that they are watching cats, as in the animals on stage, we as actors need to create characters that are believable in an atmosphere that is comfortable enough for them to sustain their belief throughout the duration of the show. Act 1. When cats are maddened by the midnight dance. As the cats make their appearance, they set to sing the prologue, Jellicle Songs for Jellicle Cats, which is one of the examples of songs that were written specifically for the musical and do not contain T.S. Eliot's words. It's a song used to expose the audience to the wide variety of cats that exist and have existed, and what it means to be a Jellicle cat. Then, they take it upon themselves to explain to us where their ineffable, effable, effing ineffable, deep and inscrutable singular names come from in the naming of cats. Cannot believe I nailed that. Thank you very much. This is followed by the invitation to the Jellicle Ball, which comprises a quick ballet interlude by Victoria, and an explanation by Munkustrap of what the audience is about to see. He says that once a year, the Jellicle cats get together to celebrate the Jellicle Ball, when the Jellicle moon is shining, so that old Deuteronomy, the oldest and wisest of the Jellicle cats, can make the Jellicle choice. This means that one of the cats will be chosen to ascend to the Heaviside layer, where they'll be reborn and encounter wonders that only they'll know. At the end, Munkustrap asks a question that jumpstarts the play. Who will it be? We now have a series of songs where the cats introduce themselves or each other. We start with Jenny 80 Dots, the old Gumby cat. She's said to spend her days lounging on stairs and windowsills, and then at night, she teaches mice and cockroaches how to turn their idleness into productiveness. The Rum Tum Tugger exposes the audience to another contender for the Jellicle choice, Rum Tum Tugger. He's said to be a curious cat who enjoys contradicting everything that is presented to him. In the 1998 direct-to-video recording of the show, you see all of the female cats fawning over him as he moves his hips sexily. Also, if you do choose to watch that version of it, there is a very fun drinking game to do. Every time the Rum Tum Tugger either fiddles with his belt or moves his collar, you take a drink. You will get faced in no time, I promise. Following Tugger's song, we see a cat that hasn't yet been a part of the celebrations. Grisabella, the glamour cat. She isn't as colorful and her bodysuit isn't as tight as the rest of the cats, so we get a sense that she's older and has seen more of life. The rest of the cats even question her looks by asking the question, and who would ever suppose that that was Grisabella, the glamour cat? We also see the other cats shunning her and looking away and avoiding any sort of contact with the cat who has flitted about the no man's land and haunted many a low resort. The next couple of songs, Buster for Jones, the Cat About Town, about a fat cat among the elite, and Mungo Jerry and Rumble Teaser, which is objectively the worst song in the entire music, which tells us the story of these two, I want to say, twin cats who like to commit petty crimes. These two songs give us more exposition on the diverse range of felines among the Jellicles. We now meet the patriarch, Old Deuteronomy. Remember this guy? He will make the Jellicle choice by the end of the night. He is beloved by all, has a shaggy coat, a kind disposition, and a deep baritone. In the 2019 movie adaptation, he's played by Dame Judi Dench. The cats then put on a small play for Old Deuteronomy called The Awful Battle of the Peaks and the Pollicles, which tells the story of two rival gangs having a brawl and being scared away by the Great Rumpus Cat. And if you're wondering what the Great Rumpus Cat looks like, this is what he looks like. In the 98 recording, at the end of the song, Old Deuteronomy sings what I consider to be a nod to a Shakespeare song that I love called Fear No More the Heat of the Sun, which says, "Golden lads and girls all must, as chimney sweepers come to dust." In his version, this verse is actually taken from another T.S. Eliot poem called Lines to a Yorkshire Terrier that read, "Pollicle dogs and cats all must, Jellicle cats and dogs all must, like undertakers come to dust." This song is neither in the original London cast recording nor the Broadway one, and the line mentioned above is not in the original libretto either. Deuteronomy is interrupted mid his weary warning by a loud crashing sound, assumed by the other cats to be McCavity. The Jellicles run, scared, but Old Deuteronomy and Monkistrap stay and scan the area to ensure it's safe, and it is, and then they just call everyone back to start the Jellicle Ball. They all partake in a long and complex dance number that culminates in the reappearance of Grisabella the Glamour Cat, when we're reminded of why the other cats dislike her, which prompts her to sing Memory Prelude. This is a song about reminiscence. Duh. Grisabella remembers her past as a beautiful cat and contrasts it with the present where we know she's not seen that way by herself or by others. This makes her feel terribly alone in the world, though she still hopes that one day these feelings she's once felt can be true for her once again. This number deeply moves Old Deuteronomy and literally every single person in the audience, and brings us to the end of Act 1. Act 2. Why will the summer day delay? When will time flow away? Act 2 is a bit shorter than Act 1, though basically all of the action of the play happens towards this 35 to 40 minutes. We open with the cats laying low and Old Deuteronomy meditating on what he's just heard from Grisabella in the moments of happiness. He is joined by Jemima, the youngest of the pack, who sings in the melody of memory about allowing recollections to set happiness alight in you and lead you to a new life. She is then joined by the rest of the cat chorus, who echo the same lines. This tender moment of self-reflection is interrupted by Gus, the theater cat. In this song, Jelly Rum and Gus himself introduce the thespian. He's older and his coat is shaggier to the likes of Grisabella, and his hands shake as he is described to have palsy. Yeah, I'm just gonna move on from that one. He tells the story of when he played Growl Tiger, a terrifying pirate figure in Growl Tiger's Last Stand, a song that has been since cut from recent productions due to its racial insensibilities. It has been since substituted by the awful ballad of the Peaks and the Pollicles from Act 1. Remember the one about the dogs, this guy in it? Yeah, that one. So, this song is also not seen in the 98 recording, but it is a part of the original libretto, so I decided to leave it in for the purposes of this video. Moving right along, we have Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat. It is believed that the train simply will not run without him being there. It's a cute song. The cats take several pieces from the junkyard and form a steam train on stage. That's cool. Were you getting to the point where you're asking yourself, oh my god, will this musical ever have any action that doesn't involve the cats reciting their autobiographies or being really horny for each other? Well, remember how I mentioned that the last 35 to 40 minutes of this musical have a bag load of action shoehorned in? Well, it's time to meet McCavity, the mystery cat. He's referred to as the Napoleon of crime, like Moriarty from the Sherlock Holmes stories, and, according to his song, has broken every single human law, which includes but is not limited to tax evasion, money laundering, arson, intellectual property violation, homicide, home invasion, illegal consumption, I'm assuming indecent exposure, blackmail, forgery, payola, terrorism, treason, Alongside his minions, he kidnaps Old Deuteronomy for reasons. Soon after, they return him, but it's actually Macavity disguised as Old Deuteronomy. Oh no! Did I convince you? So Monkeystrap and the other cats fight Macavity, and in the end, he electrocutes himself, I think? Or he just like short circuits the lights in the theater. But how do we get Old Deuteronomy back? Did I convince you? Well, it's time to bring out the big guns. And by that, yes, I do mean the gayest of the cats. Rum Tum Tugger's alleged lover, the magical Mr. Mistopheles. In this song, he's introduced as the Magic Cat, being able to perform feats of illusionism as well as some great dance moves. He restores the lights in the theater and brings back Dame Judi Dench. It is now time for the big 11 o'clock number, Memory. Before I get into a short analysis of this song, I would like to point out that this is another instance of lyrics that were not part of Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. They were in fact adapted from another T.S. Eliot poem called Rhapsody on the Windy Night, which I highly recommend you look it up and read it. It's online, it's free. Give it a read. Very pretty. Memory. The 11 o'clock number. I've taken some time to analyze the words that Grizabella sings in order to understand the role that this song plays within the story. And there are several moments in it that actually help to tie everything together, believe it or not. My leading thought when analyzing the song was, what is it that sets Grizabella apart from the rest of the cats? A plausible explanation as to why Old Deuteronomy will go on to choose Grizabella as the Jellicle choice is that he sees that she has 1. Fulfilled her purpose as a Jellicle cat, and 2. Come to understand the meaning of the Jellicle life she has lived. Making new memories, or in other terms, living a full life, can be seen as the meaning of happiness. Once you realize you've stopped being a part of new exciting moments and therefore stopped making new exciting memories, it means it's time to move on. It's time for a new life to begin. Grizabella continues voicing her wish to be recognized again, as well as her yearning to be seen and to be remembered. She alludes to the death of the day, which brings out the birth of a new one, and this works almost as foreshadowing for the journey she will soon embark on. When the dawn comes, tonight will be a memory too, and a new day will begin, is what she sings. She doesn't see the birth of a new day as an exciting thing anymore. The way she describes it actually paints a rather grim and even cynical picture. Burnt out ends of smoky days, the stale cold smell of morning. A street lamp dies, another night is over, another day is dawning. There's no new adventure to be lived. The night simply dies and the day simply dawns, and so it goes. She has become the walking embodiment of a memory, only being able to relive her glory days as remembrances and incapable of experiencing new things. Grizabella has fulfilled her purpose as the glamour cat, and we know she is no longer seen that way. As it was said earlier, you see the border of her coat is torn and stained with sand, and you see the corner of her eye twist like a crooked pin. And who would ever suppose that that was Grizabella the glamour cat? Grizabella's tired of waking up each day to the stale cold smell of morning. She is tired of not living anymore. She no longer feels the excitement of having a purpose and experiencing new things every day, unlike Jenny Annie Dots and Skimbleshanks, who both have very clear motivations. And unlike Gus, the theater cat, the memory is fading. She's tired of living off of remembrances. She has learned her lessons, seen the beauty of life, and she's now ready to move on. Grizabella ultimately yearns for the chance to create new memories. She yearns to be reborn. She appeals to the rest of the cats to touch her so they can understand what happiness is. She is her own story. Now, I truly do not know what the Jellicle choice is for Old Deuteronomy, or what he takes into account when making it, but in my opinion, Grizabella really is the obvious Jellicle choice. So once she's done making her case, the rest of the cats start touching her and accepting her, and Deuteronomy brings her close so she can ascend to the Heaviside layer in the journey to the Heaviside layer. Now, depending on the production you watch, Grisabella will either go up a set of futuristic stairs or this UFO-looking thing. Finally, in the addressing of cats, we are reminded of how we should treat and, well, address cats. Firstly, you should always remember that a cat is not a dog. Secondly, you should always address a cat with the caveat that they resent familiarity. Before they can treat you as a friend, you should gift them with a treat, keeping in mind that all cats have unique tastes. Finally, once you've been given a cat's trust, always remember to address it by its name. Thus concludes Cats, a musical about cats, but also about some other stuff. Let us now talk about the cats in the room, namely Andrew Lloyd Webber, who was responsible for composing the music, Trevor Nunn, responsible for directing and providing some additional lyrics, and the man himself, T.S. Eliot, who accidentally wrote the book and the lyrics. These were only 3 of the many, many, many minds that, though posthumously, got together to bring us Cats the Musical. So everybody repeat with me, just let's get this out of the way. Thank you for bringing us Cats the Musical. We are so thankful. We'll begin with Lord Andy so I can get this out of the way as soon as humanly possible. The man is a genius. He somehow managed to mastermind some of the most famous musicals in the world. Cats, Jesus Christ Superstar, Evita, and not to mention some of the less well-known musicals of his, which are still pretty popular, and honestly are my favorite musicals of his, Song and Dance and Sunset Boulevard, as well as many, many, many others. Including, and I don't know if you've ever heard of, yep, this is also his handiwork, allegedly, and I will only mention this in passing because it is not my intention to spark controversy, only to comment on it. Lord Baron Mr. Lloyd Webber is also known for having a few accusations of plagiarism against him, which, for the purposes of this video, that's neither here nor there, but it is a fact. The accusations, I mean. Now, if you are interested in learning more about this, there is a whole section on his Wikipedia page just dedicated to said accusations, as well as a few videos on YouTube to help enlighten you. Anyways, Andrew, Mom Andrew, was born on March 22nd, 1948, to organ player and composer extraordinaire William Lloyd Webber and violinist and pianist badass Jean Hermione Johnstone. He also has a younger brother who is also a musician, so you can only imagine what growing up surrounded by creative minds can spark inside a young man. I mean, at the young age of 15, he had already set T.S. Eliot's poems, the same ones that originated Cats, to music. He studied at the Royal College of Music, where he got to explore and deepen his love and interest for musical theater, which can be partially attributed to his Aunt Viola, who was an actress. His first major work started out as a 15-minute production and got reworked and rewritten and expanded to become what we now know as Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. This was also the first public collaboration between Lloyd Webber and lyricist Tim Rice, with whom he would later work on Jesus Christ Superstar, Evita, and Cricket, which is a musical he wrote for the Queen. And the only reason I said public collaboration before is because they had already written a musical together called The Likes of Us in 1965, which actually never ended up being produced until 2005. He started becoming more and more famous as soon as Jesus Christ Superstar became a hit. After that, we had Evita, which has the amazing ballad Don't Cry For Me Argentina, and it ran for 10 years on the West End of London. By the time the 80s hit, Lord Andy was already a huge name in the industry, but the 80s were a great time for him to become even more established. In 81, he strove to bring us Cats, which ran for 21 years on West End, and 18 on Broadway. In 84, he made the interesting choice to base a musical on Thomas the Tank Engine. Thomas the Tank Engine. Why did they make that name so hard? In 84, he made the interesting choice to base a musical on Thomas the Tank Engine, which brought us the extremely hated by critics and very dangerous for actors, Starlight Express, which do not get me wrong, is still a huge commercial success. There's a theater in Germany that is converted to have a production of it running probably forever. It's been running since 1988. Can you believe that? Like, non-stop. It's 2020. In '86, London saw what would become a worldwide phenomenon, Phantom of the Opera, which starred his second wife, Sarah Brightman, in the role of Christine. The production was directed by the Prince of Broadway, Mr. Harold Prince, and is still running both in London and in New York. It is the longest running musical on Broadway and the third longest running musical on the West End. The 90s came with Sunset Boulevard, rising tension between him and Patti LuPone, a song for the '92 Barcelona Olympics called Amigos para Siempre, Friends for Life, and the direct-to-video recording of Cats We All Know and Deserve. The 2000s brought us Love Never Dies, a sequel to Phantom of the Opera that literally no one asked for and makes no sense. I think it's safe to say, though, that Andrew Lloyd Webber has had a very successful career, garnering, and I'm going to read this because it's a long list, an Academy Award, a Golden Globe, an Emmy, 4 Grammys, 6 Tonys, plus a Lifetime Achievement Award, and a whole lot of other prestigious accolades, including being made Baron Lloyd Webber in 1997, and he is most commonly referred to as Lord Lloyd Webber, but who's counting? He's an active member of the Conservative Party in the UK and has participated in a few rather controversial votes as a member of the House of Lords, from which he retired in 2017. Lloyd Webber has made a huge impact on what we know as musical theater, and his legacy will live on forever, as I do not see any way in hell the Phantom of the Opera will ever close on Broadway. Moving on, and I'll try to keep these as quick as possible, we have Sir Trevor Nunn, who is one of the most well-known and revered British theatre directors. From a very young age, Nunn was a curious reader with a knack for finding and understanding the intricacies of literature and play reading. He joined the Royal Shakespeare Company at the young age of 24, and at 28 he was appointed their artistic director, a position that he held from 1968 through 1986. He is no stranger to directing musicals. Some titles include Les Miserables, which is still running in London, Starlight Express, Sunset Boulevard, Cats, of course, Porgy and Bess, My Fair Lady, and I could go on forever. He has a very long list of musicals he directed. However, he is more well known for his Shakespeare productions, having directed the entire canon with some of the most outstanding actors any director could ever hope to direct, such as Dame Judi Dench, Sir Ian McKellen, his former wife, Imogen Stubbs, among hundreds of others. He's also responsible for directing the 8.5-hour production of Charles Dickens' The Life and Adventures of Nicholas Nickleby, which was so long that it had to be divided between 2 parts, which were either presented one after the other with a dinner break, or one in one day and one in the other. He has hundreds of credits to his name, as well as some pretty impressive accolades, including 3 Tony Awards, 3 Olivier Awards, and knighthood that came in 2002. His legacy includes his years as artistic director for both the Royal Shakespeare Company and the Royal National Theatre, as well as his brilliancy in staging plays and musicals in very interesting and captivating ways that have been enchanting audiences for decades. He is 80 years old right now and still working. Finally, Thomas Stearns Eliot, also known as T.S. Eliot, was born in 1888 in St. Louis, Missouri, to a very prominent family. He became obsessed with reading from a very young age due to a condition that he developed that didn't let him be super physically active all the time. His memorialist wrote that a young Eliot would often curl up in the window seat behind an enormous book, setting the drug of dreams against the pain of living. And people say I'm dramatic. He started writing poetry at 14 while attending Smith Academy and published his first poems at the young age of 17. He studied philosophy at Harvard for a hot second, where he earned his BA in something that nowadays would be seen as a degree in comparative literature, and an MA in English literature. He spent some time in France, Germany, and then eventually England, where he settled down for the remainder of his lifetime, eventually even renouncing his American citizenship to become a British subject. By his own admission, Elliot didn't write a lot, quantity-wise. By my own admission, what he did write is amazing. I love it. Some of his most popular work includes, of course, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, which he wrote for his godchildren, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, The Wasteland, and The Hollow Men. He also dabbled in playwriting and had a special admiration for Jacobean and Elizabethan verse drama, so people like Thomas Kidd and Shakespeare and John Webster were like his people. He wrote titles like Murder in the Cathedral and The Cocktail Party, whose 1950 Broadway production earned a Tony for Best Play. And even more, T.S. Eliot was actually a very important figure in 20th century literary criticism, which establishes him as one of the most influential people in English literature. And this showed in the many accolades that he received in his career and posthumously. So I'm going to read them as I usually do. The Order of Merit in the UK, the Presidential Medal of Freedom in the US, the Nobel Prize in Literature, as well as 3 Tony Awards, and 2 of those were posthumous for Cats. Cats is the 4th longest running musical on Broadway and 6th on the West End, so something about it must be captivating for audiences. Cats is a musical with a story that is easy enough to digest, the music is pretty and melodic, the costume and makeup alone make the price of the ticket worth it, so people of all ages truly can enjoy Cats to the best of their ability. Moreover, the sexual undertones are only somewhat implied, making Cats a really fun night out for the whole family. It is aesthetically very impressive, with its large cast, long and complex dance numbers, beautiful pop power ballads, the cats walk close to the audience, all things that people think about when they think of musical theater. Now, if you are an aspiring actor looking for the next great acting opportunity, a compelling character with a good story arc, Cats might not be the best place to find that. Due to limitations posed by T.S. Eliot's estate, namely his widow, the creative team had to work solely with what they were given by the author, which works both in their favor and against them at the same time. By following Eliot's poems, the story is simplified quite a bit, which makes it more digestible for people of all backgrounds to enjoy. However, one of the main issues I have with using the poems is that it feels a bit like a jukebox musical, where they have to fit plot around existing poetry rather than creating it to serve the story. This way, we have a bunch of characters being presented to us one after the other, but who actually serve no purpose in moving the story forward, and sometimes don't ever even appear again, like Jenny and Dots or Gus or Mungo Jerry. Moreover, the language feels a bit too elevated at times to be fully understood in song form, so we do have to rely quite a bit on context and visual cues to fully grasp the meaning of each moment. But in doing this research, I have grown to appreciate how incredibly hard it must have been to write a musical that had honestly so much against it. If you look up the history of Cats, it almost didn't happen because of money and people didn't want to invest in it. So honestly, I'm very impressed that this musical became a game changer. Now, the question we have all been wondering the answer to. Do I think that Cats is a great musical? Oh, won't you look at the time? I gotta go walk my dog. I hope you have all enjoyed my very first video. Please make sure to leave me some suggestions in the comments below, letting me know what I can do to make them better for you. And I would also like to ask for suggestions of musicals and important figures in theater that I should talk about in the future. Please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and share this with the musical theater lover in your life. Well, I'm off to ascend to the Heaviside layer. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!